But I think there's a whole strata of bikes at the much more at the budget end than you would be led to believe if you're just kind of reading articles and looking at the main cycling media. And yeah, this video I think is just a bit of recognition and shout out to the fact that you don't need to spend that much money on bicycles to kind of get out into these fantastic places. Okay, so here's a few reasons why I think people shouldn't overlook more budget bicycles, cheaper end of the market. Well, maybe the first one is that a lot of people buy bikes because they're thinking about, or they've decided to get into cycling, and you're doing just that. You're getting into something that perhaps you're not familiar with, and you've no idea whether it's going to stick and become a kind of serious pastime or hobby, or whether you're going to go out on a couple of rides, decide it's not for you, and then stick the bike in the garage and forget all about it or sell it on. I think if that's the case and that's the situation you find yourself in, it doesn't really make sense in my view to go out and spend a fortune on a bicycle. I think for me, one of the reasons why I'm quite adamant that cheap bicycles shouldn't be discounted, it's just personal experience and proof of concept. I mean, I did the John O'Groats to Land's End trip in 2019 with a friend of mine, and I was riding a £280 I think at the time Carrera Vanquish road bike from Halfords. All I did to it was put a riser on, I put an extra roll of bar tape on the handlebars, and I put clipless pedals on it. Okay, it was absolutely flawless. It had a bottom of the range Shimano group set, but you know, never missed a beat. Didn't have any mechanicals, didn't have any punches or anything. It was just a perfect bike, and I had a fantastic trip. And I just kind of thought from that point onwards, well, I mean, look what you can do with a half decent, really budget road bike. And when I came to buy a mountain bike, I bought a Voodoo Bantu, which is a predecessor to the bike I'm riding today. Again, I think it was like 500 quid or something. For the kind of riding I do and just getting into trail riding and, you know, mucking about the mountain bikes, it was perfect. And I've taken that over some pretty rough trails and down, you know, some pretty gnarly trails and trail centres, you know, slowly and not like Danny McCaskill or anything, but it's perfectly fine. And you know, that is a mountain bike, and my road bike would have been bikes that a lot of people just turn their nose up at, and I really don't understand that. And part of this video is, I think, just a response to seeing, you know, cycling media and some YouTubers and brands and marketeers talking about cheap bikes, and I like shouting at my you know, my telly going, that's not a cheap bike, you know. Maybe in comparison to how much you can spend, it's relatively cheap, but in real terms that is not a cheap bicycle. Another reason that the more budget friendly bicycles I think are quite worthwhile is just the ongoing maintenance of them. They have cheaper components, that's true, but they're kind of bottom of the range for decent component brands, so the likes of kind of Shimano and all that sort of stuff are still pretty good quality. And the fact that they have cheaper components when it comes to replacing those components when they wear out is it's quite an advantage, because you're not having to spend a lot of money in terms of that ongoing maintenance, and it just so happens that on cheaper, more mass-produced bicycles, parts are easier to come by, they're more swappable, and it's more likely, if you are inclined to do a little bit of bike tinkering at home or whatever, you know, have a go yourself, it's more likely that you'll be able to do that on a less expensive bike, because they're just simpler. And you know, that applies to the kind of cheap mountain bikes or basic road bikes, etc, etc. So the bike that I'm riding today, the new Voodoo Braag, is currently on sale, which is really frustrating because I bought it just before the special offer that Halfords have at the moment. But you can get this now for, I think it's 480 quid. I mean, that is much cheaper than the kind of cheap mountain bikes that you might read about and hear about when they're put up against, you know, mid-range and more expensive bikes. And yeah, you can't go over, you know, black runs in mountain bike centres and do jumps and all that kind of stuff with it, but it is a proper mountain bike. It's a decent hardtail, and it'll take you out into the hills, and it'll take you over some pretty rough terrain, especially if you're kind of, you know, you're more at the non-technical side of mountain biking, which the majority of people who have mountain bikes are. Security, well, currently my mountain bike is up behind that wall. It's about 20-30 metres away from me, and I feel quite relaxed about that. Now, if that was a £2,500 plus mountain bike, don't think I would let it out of my sight. And but with a relatively inexpensive bike, you're not just sitting in a cafe panicking if your bike's out of sight that somebody's hacking through your lock and going to nick it, and you're going to be £2, £3, £4, £5 plus dollars out of pocket. So a less expensive bike makes you more relaxed when you're sipping your coffee on your cafe stops. I just wanted to, I suppose, fly a little flag for not spending that much money to get into and to kind of maintain. If you're interested in cycling, it's completely unnecessary in my experience, and by all means, if you've got cash to, you know, burn, you know, go and get these dream machines. They are awesome. They're ridiculously light in terms of road bikes. I mean, I've got friends who've got road bikes, and you pick them up and there's just nothing in your hand almost, and that isn't the experience I have with my bikes. But you can not spend a lot of money and get out into these fantastic parts of, you know, country, and you can go around the world on a budget bike. There's so many people that do that, and I personally find that quite inspiring. So as you can probably tell, there isn't really much point to this video. It just winds me up sometimes when you see you know, bikes being described as budget or cheap when they're really not. But anyway, if you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. Please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out and I appreciate it. Otherwise, stay safe, take care, and happy, budget, expensive, whatever, it's all good. Happy cycling. Bye.